Yo, has the 8th largest country in the world just accelerated their attack on Bitcoin. This $2.2 trillion giant tried to double the capital gains on Bitcoin from 26% to 46% only a couple weeks ago. Their central bank just quietly released a report on Christmas Eve, I'm assuming they thought no one was watching, where they called peer-to-peer transactions, quote, crime as a service. Let's not forget, this isn't the first country in the EU region to attack Bitcoin and freedom recently. Just go through a couple bullet points. Number one, France is talking about implementing unrealized capital gains tax on Bitcoin. We played you guys the video. Denmark is also proposing unrealized capital gains specifically on Bitcoin. And of course, we can't forget Germany selling 50,000 Bitcoin at 55K. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. The EU seems to be attacking Bitcoin at the same time that America is embracing it. Today, we're gonna be discussing why the global game theory is heating up and what you need to know to be paying attention in 2025. Who's joining me today is our special guest, Alladin, founder of BTC Trading Cards, big fan, of course, my legendary co-host, who is always optimistic no matter what, specifically on today's show, Optimus Fields. So let's get into some of the reporting. This is an article by Bitcoin Systemi. The headline is Bank of Italy publishes report on Bitcoin, includes some shocking remarks. Let's get to it. In the latest economic and financial report number 893, the Bank of Italy classified Bitcoin peer-to-peer services as, quote, crime as a service, citing their suspected role in facilitating money laundering activities. Quote, the title of the report is Money Laundering and Blockchain. Can you follow their footsteps in the crypto world? That's the title. The report sheds light on platforms that enable Bitcoin trading without requiring KYC verification. According to the bank, these services create opportunities for criminals to conceal the origins of illicit funds and complicate law enforcement efforts to track transactions. The report notes that such platforms operate in jurisdictions with weak anti-money laundering regulations or in countries designated as high risk. It goes on to say, one interesting aspect of the report is that it mentions events such as Satoshi Spritz, where people gather to exchange Bitcoin for goods or fiat services. While these gatherings are typically organized by the Bitcoin community to promote education and adoption, the bank warns that they can also be used for illicit purposes. I mean, it's a very slippery slope once you try to frame it this way, because it's like, why can't you do the same with cash, right? So I feel like it's just a straw man argument. I feel like this is a central bank. They see Bitcoin as a threat. They no longer have the monopoly or the control over money. And they say, you know, those guys are criminals, right? That's what I'm seeing from my perspective. Now, that's not to say that, you know, criminals don't use Bitcoin, but criminals use cash. I mean, there was an article that dropped the other day. We read it to you guys, where the TD Bank was caught laundering an absurd amount of money, and then, you know, they got a fine, and they were laundering money for a drug cartel. So I mean, like, you know, because they're basically trying to make the argument. It's like, look, it's because it's Bitcoin, but what they fail to mention is that the vast majority of criminal activity is using traditional finance. It's not using Bitcoin. In fact, I would say Bitcoin is not, you can't obscure it as much as you can obscure cash. It's a public ledger. You can literally trace transactions to the inception of Bitcoin, right? And if you just see this report on itself, you'd say, Nico, maybe they're just worried. Maybe they just don't understand. Maybe they just don't know what they're talking about. But like always, guys, I want you to connect the dots. So let me show you this other article by Bloomberg. And again, it's the hostility, man. It's the hostility. And why is it with Bitcoin only? Like, and again, it's not Italy. We heard the same thing from France, and we heard the same thing from Denmark. There's some recent talk about, I don't know if it's going to go through with the Trump administration, but some change in quote unquote crypto reporting here in the United States. Like, what I think this all is really about is the separation of money and state, and the government's essentially losing their ability to tax via inflation as people seek to use alternative non-sovereign currencies. Of course, the primary one, the best one, because it's decentralized and secure, being Bitcoin. I think that's what it boils down to. And I think that they're essentially trying to stem the flow, and more importantly, they're trying to demonize the alternatives. And I think one of the things that they've done, and we've seen this in the past, is come up with like very creative boogeyman type of like wording and stuff when you hear stuff like non-custodial wallet. That word doesn't exist. It's not in the white paper. Like, that was created by like a group of bureaucrats, essentially. That doesn't exist. So, but if you phrase it like non-custodial wallet, that makes it seem like it's the abnormal. It's like non-custodial. There's no such thing as a non-custodial wallet. You either have custody of your Bitcoin or someone else has custody of your Bitcoin and they owe you an IOU. It's black and white like that. But in the fiat world, of course, you can apply this, complicated type wording. But anyways, let's continue connecting the dots for you guys. So here's a Bloomberg article: Italy to raise capital gains tax on Bitcoin from 42% from 26%. It goes on to say Italy plans to raise the capital gains tax on Bitcoin to 42% from 26%, parts of efforts to finance expensive election promises while cutting the fiscal deficit. You know what could also cut the fiscal deficit? If you guys stopped printing money, or if you guys stopped promising things that you couldn't afford, and because you can't afford them, you have to tax your population more, or you have to print the difference, which is an indirect form of taxation. It goes on to say, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni cabinet made the move given the, quote, phenomenon is spreading. Deputy Finance Minister said during a conference call on Wednesday in reference to Bitcoin. I mean, that quote says a lot. The phenomenon is spreading. What phenomenon, right? Like, what phenomenon? Like, that tax doesn't seem to me, when I'm reading that, like a tax that comes from a place of like, oh, we need to generate revenue for the government. That tax looks like a de-incentive. That tax is like, don't use Bitcoin because you're going to get taxed to high heaven, essentially. It's like the phenomenon is spreading. What phenomenon? Well, like, what does this mean, phenomenon? Like, how they say it is fascinating. Now, the last thing I'll say is, of course, you guys remember Denmark. We've covered it. Denmark's new crypto bill proposes tax on unrealized gains dating back to Bitcoin's birth. So, yeah, I think, you're seeing all of this worldwide. It's not surprising. And of course, Europe has been going down the, big government type of route. And I think Bitcoin inherently is not for big government. Bitcoin is a way to opt out of big government, I would say, and save some of your purchasing power. And again, I don't want to get into the topic of direct taxation, because whether you agree with it or you don't disagree with it, the fact is that it's in the law. There's a social contract. People have agreed to it. The income tax is the income tax. However, I think most of these countries, including the United States, they don't just tax you via income tax. They tax you via money tax. And that's exactly what inflation is. And it's the effects on society. I had a conversation. It seems like you guys enjoyed the Christmas special with Larry Lepard, which we dropped yesterday. Has over 30,000 views on YouTube alone. And, he just wrote an entire book on inflation and what the, downstream effects are of inflation and what inflation has done to society as a whole. If you go to the website, What the F Happened in 1971, I highly recommend that you do. My hair is like a cockatoo right now. You will literally see, and again, it's not a coincidence. You'll literally start to see how society starts to break at the seams, and all these things that you'd think are not related to inflation, how it affects all these facets of society. And of course, you know, it affects it affects like goods and services too, because of course, like business owners want to keep prices where they are. They don't want to raise prices on their customers. So there's this phenomenon of shrink inflation, where they literally shrink the packages to keep the prices the same, or even worse, they make the materials of the package of the product itself worse, right? So you're getting worse food, worse products, even though the prices are staying the same. Like, this is the scam. And then the last thing I'll say before I pass it on to Alladin is that inflation is the most insidious tax because it affects the people that need money the most, which are the lower and middle classes. They don't have the means to save in assets. Therefore, they're living paycheck to paycheck and they're working for a salary. And that salary is not keeping up with the cost of living. And that is literally because of inflation. Now, this all might sound depressing and whatever. I'm weaving and I'm going to weave it back in. You can opt out of this system right now by adopting Bitcoin as a unit of account. And then all of a sudden, inflation is not a thing. Your life will get progressively cheaper forever. And you want to know why you have that hubristic like type of language from the Italian finance minister saying, this is an interesting phenomenon. You know why the central bank of Italy is trying to demonize Bitcoin? This is exactly why. To use Christine Lagarde's own words, Bitcoin is an escape valve and they don't want people escaping. That's what it comes down to. That's what it's all about. Don't let them gaslight you. Most importantly, don't let them gaslight your friends and family. Be the Bitcoiner in that conversation and tell them the truth and show them Bitcoin is for everyone and Bitcoin really, really does fix things. Anyways, Alladin, what's your take on this? I could see you're wearing the badass blue blocking glasses. I wish I would have worn mine today so we'd be matching. What are your thoughts on this, brother? Also, almost 2,000 live viewers already between YouTube, Rumble, and X. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, help us break 150 likes within the first 20 minutes of the show. So smash that like button. Alladin, what's your take, brother?
Yeah, morning, guys. I've been watching quite a bit of this over the last few days. If we didn't think that they were going to come try to front run what's happening with Bitcoin and where the price is going, then we're probably not paying attention to what's been happening over the last 100 years. I really think it's just their way of getting in front of it. They are probably pretty confident, like we are, that Bitcoin's going to take off and continue to go higher and higher. And this is their way of being able to jump in and grab their chunk. I do imagine that there's a good chance what's coming. Just my guess on this is we're going to tax you to all hell when it comes to your Bitcoin gains. But eventually they're probably going to come up with something that is, well, here's an incentive. If you pay your taxes in Bitcoin, then we'll give you some kind of a break. Just on the idea that these strategic reserves around the world are going to start jumping in. I do believe this is an absolutely unstoppable, call it a phenomenon of Bitcoin. And yeah, governments are corrupt as all hell, and they're going to find their way to get their piece. So just be prepared.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Is like, if they start doing this unrealized capital gains, then all of us, this is our point. I've seen this thing, I think it was yesterday, George Washington crossing the river, ready to go to war over a 3% tax. And here we are getting completely destroyed by our governments when it comes to taxes. There does come a point, hopefully 100% nonviolent, but there does come a point where as a people, we need to stand up and tell these corrupt POSs no.
Yeah, 100%. Actually, and I'm really glad that you brought that up, Alladin, because I was thinking about this because I was seeing some of the regulations that were happening in the United States. And I think that this is going to be, I think with the incoming administration, a lot of this stuff is going to be repealed. But I said some original thought from last night. I said, does anyone else find it ironic that there are all these new upcoming requirements for businesses to register with the FinCEN? That's right. If you're a business, you have to register with the FinCEN. You have to file all this paperwork before January something. While the Pentagon can't account for 60%, that's right, 60% of its $4.1 trillion in assets, equating to 2.46 trillion, and has failed an audit for the 7th year in a row. But you, peasant, you need to have all your paperwork in check. So again, it's rules for thee, but not for me. And I think that's the fundamental problem is instead of like having a little bit of like, you know, self-reflection and being like, you know what, guys, like maybe this isn't a taxation problem. Maybe this is a spending problem. Like, you know, instead of like self-reflecting a little bit, they're like, no, let's double down. Fuck it. You know? However, I'm going to use a quote from the Sovereign Individual, and we're going to check out a passage of it later on in today's show. Governments see their citizens like tax cattle. The problem is that the internet has now given them wings. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on all this, brother? And of course, I know that, you know, a lot of you guys don't know this, but before Opti and Christine Lagarde were dated, Opti was trying to talk to Maloney, but I don't know if he ever pulled that off.
I'm still working on it, Nico. No, all right. So my first take, and really, you know, well, first of all, backing up a little bit, like, am I surprised that a central bank is out here kind of attacking Bitcoin? Not at all. I think it is their incentive to try to stop the adoption of Bitcoin. And I think the very interesting take from that report is essentially, you know, what was their quote? Crime as a service, peer-to-peer is crime as a service, when us Bitcoiners know like the real criminals use dollar. That's not even the conversation here. I think the interesting part of the conversation is this idea that Bitcoin, you know, peer-to-peer transactions, crimes as a service. So they're painting a problem that Bitcoin is being used for criminals. And what's their solution, which is always a solution of politicians, is to pass more regulations, more KYC, more AML. And I think this is a trend we are going to continue to see. We've kind of saw this happen in the US as well. Now it seems like we might get a different kind of angling from the administration in 2025. And so am I surprised that this is happening, or rather a central bank is kind of being like, oh, Bitcoin's for criminals, therefore let us pass more laws, let us get more stringent KYC, AML laws, let's just make sure we can track them better, and we'll eliminate all the criminals. I think this is a very, very clear-cut dialectic solution here. You know, propose a problem and then propose the solution you want, which is, of course, trying to track and bag Bitcoiners and people that want to use money that isn't debased. Like, that part is not surprising at all. I think the most surprising part about this is this idea that Giorgia Meloni, you know, the Prime Minister of Italy, she's supposed to be a free market maximalist. Like, she's supposed to be for freedom. She's been talking with Milei. She kind of goes out there. I don't think she's actually a libertarian, but she kind of been talking in those terms of like, oh, I'm for freedom. I want Italy to prosper. You know, I want more capitalism. I want more entrepreneurs in Italy. And then on the back end, they're passing regulations to tax unrealized gains. Like, this is crazy. This is not how it should work if you are, quote unquote, a freedom maxi, a free market capitalist, etc. But am I surprised? Not really. We've been covering all year long about the EU and nations in Europe, and they just seem to be doing everything ass backwards. Like, it honestly seems like they are doing whatever they can to stop their countries from progressing. Like, they really are the you know, ground zero for the World Economic Forum to pass all of these really, really ridiculous laws to stop their citizens from prospering. And, you know, if I was in Europe, I would be very, very honestly thinking about leaving at this point. But since I'm in America, I look over at Europe, and it really, like Alladin was saying, it really does feel like, you know, the founding fathers looking at Europe and be like, man, they do the most idiotic laws over there. Maybe we need to secede. Maybe we need to cut ourselves off from that country. So, you know, it feels good to be an American at this point and look at the EU and all the things they're doing. And it's just like, man, it really feels like they're trying to handicap themselves. And maybe giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe they do actually believe in the stuff that they're saying. But also, I've been saying all year long, I think at this point, looking at politicians and, of course, central bankers and their ilk and how they respond to Bitcoin, I don't think we can be naive anymore and believe that, oh, they don't understand what Bitcoin is. I think they very clearly understand the stakes at hand, and they're doing whatever they can to try to stop the adoption of Bitcoin. And I think this is another case. And it really is a bit of a letdown to see Meloni kind of go out there with her rhetoric and say, like, I'm for freedom, I'm for prosperity of my country, and then kind of pass these very ass backwards laws that are going to handicap the Italian citizens. And so hopefully the US kind of gets their head out of their ass, and next year we see some very favorable laws in the US, which will really kick off the global hash war. And if Bitcoin becomes, or rather, if America becomes the Bitcoin capital of the world, everyone else is going to follow suit, and I'm here for it. I'm really excited to see the jurisdictional arbitrage that is seemingly on the horizon, and hopefully we get some very favorable, regulations and jurisdictions. And by favorable, I mean literally just like get out of our way, treat Bitcoin as money, eliminate the capital gains, etc., and let people start to prosper versus the opposite, which is trying to steal as much as possible from us as quickly as possible.
100%. I also want to give some sources too, because Opti made some points about how the majority of illicit finance is in fiat, not Bitcoin. This is from a Forbes article. You guys can check it out. Don't trust, verify. The name of the article, if you search it, is "The False Narrative of Bitcoin's Role in Illicit Finance." Here, I'll read you some of the passages. The majority of cryptocurrency is not used for criminal activity, according to an excerpt from Chain Analysis 2021 report. In 2019, criminal activity represented 2.1% of all cryptocurrency transaction volume. In 2020, the criminal share of all cryptocurrency activity fell to just 0.34%. According to the UN, it is estimated that between 2 and 5% of global GDP, between 1.6 to 4 trillion annually, is connected with money laundering and illicit activity. This means that criminal activity using cryptocurrency transactions is much smaller than fiat currency, and its use is going down year by year. So again, it's important to point those facts out, to combat, this attack from a central bank, which again is not surprising. They are the established players after all. I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. To get started, all you got to do is you put in your email address. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to sign up. Bada bing, bada boom. You're ready to buy Bitcoin. What makes Bitcoin Well different than all the other Bitcoin on-ramps is that it's completely non-custodial, meaning as soon as you buy Bitcoin and the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. It doesn't even give you the ability to leave your Bitcoin on the exchange. I also want to give a shout out to Bitcoin Well Infinite. It's a product tailored for higher net worth individuals that are looking to buy over $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. So if you're tired of dealing with finicky UI, or you're tired of buying your Bitcoin through an exchange or through these things, and you actually want to deal with a real human being, go check out bitcoinwell.com/OTC, and you're going to have a dedicated representative who you can always reach out to if you're trying to buy or sell Bitcoin. And if you have questions about Bitcoin also. And every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points. And you could redeem those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're doing live for you guys right now. Get your Lightning wallets ready. First person to scan the QR code has won 210 sats. Every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well, you win. And you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. So use promo code SimplyBTC, again, SimplyBTC, to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, and you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. We have lots to talk about.
I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on StampSeed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store.
All right, everybody, use the QR code on your screen right now. Head over to the stampseed.com website. Don't write down your seed words. Literally stamp them onto titanium so they could last the test of time. At the time of recording, and use promo code SIMPLY for 15% off. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 95,820. Block height, 876,480. Sats per dollar, 1,044. Market cap, 1.9 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 10.33%. Percentage issued, 94.29%. Decline from all-time high, negative 11.5%. Realized monetary inflation, 1.12. All right, everybody, moving on. Had a interesting tweet from Luke Broyles. Luke Broyles has done incredible work. I believe he's with the Blockware team these days. A great company and great content creators as well. And he had some interesting thoughts. So let's check it out. He said, wait, so if MetaPlanet is the best performing stock in Japan, MicroStrategy's best performing stock in the USA. Bitcoin is the best performing commodity. MicroStrategy's convertible bonds the best performing. The BTC ETF, the most successful ETF launch ever, and the fastest growing network. Are we winning? I also want to drop in Bukele's numbers as well, right? Bukele is the most popular president in the Americas. Is that a coincidence that he adopted the Bitcoin standard? Is it a coincidence that Sailor's, stock basically outperformed most of the S&P 500? Is that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that your life gets progressively cheaper over time if you adopt a Bitcoin standard? Like, these are all a lot of coincidences. There's so many coincidences, which you can say theoretically it is possible that there are that many coincidences. Or could it be that Bitcoin fixes things because it's sound money and it actually protects your energy, your work, your time from the ravages of inflation? Now, how long until the rest of society wakes up to that reality? I think that's the opportunity, right? That's why I think we have, I'm not going to say this, but I think at least we have a minimum of 10x and that's on the bearish side ahead of us, right? So yeah, I mean, like, how long until society realizes and wakes up? And those are a lot of coincidences from Luke, and I'm really glad he pointed it out. And that's a phenomenon that you're seeing everywhere, right? So you have multiple companies that have already come out publicly and said, hey, we're following the MicroStrategy playbook and we're adopting a Bitcoin standard. And as soon as they do that, their stocks just skyrocket. I mean, Rumble announced a partnership with Tether, and I believe they're using some of that money to buy Bitcoin. And they've announced that early on in the year. And then what happens? Their stock went up like 100%, or something crazy like that. In a very short period of time. You hear Indian companies, saying an Indian company, their CEO announced that they're following the MicroStrategy playbook. Of course, MetaPlanet with Dylan LeClaire leading the charge there. Of course, Bitcoin doing it in Canada. So many companies across the board are following the same playbook, and their stocks are benefiting from it. So I think it's an absolute no-brainer. And I think it's a matter of time before the world realizes that Bitcoin is literally meant to go up forever, Laura. Anyways, I'm going to pass it on to Alladin. Alladin, what's your take on this? You are a Bitcoin entrepreneur, I would say. What's your take on the cheat code that Bitcoin gives you once you make it part of your treasury strategy?
I mean, there's no competition with the other companies out there over time. They're not going to be able to keep up. That's why I was really stoked, a week or so ago when Microsoft didn't want to put it on their treasury. That was a really, really amazing thing to me, because I do believe that cheat code is definitely built in if you start adopting Bitcoin. And I'd love to see companies that really have the best benefit out for humanity to take this on versus these companies that have proven their shit. Like, I hope McDonald's never starts to adopt Bitcoin on their treasury. A lot of these companies, it's time for them to take off and kick rocks and let the new wave come in. So really excited to see this happen with companies that get it. I think, honestly, like, number go up on Bitcoin is incredible, but I don't think that's the ultimate win we have here. I think the ultimate win is the awakening that people really start to discover as they get into Bitcoin. It doesn't matter how rich you are and how much profit you make off Bitcoin, whether you sell it or whatever you do with it. The bigger win is learning about seed oils and learning all the different things that us as Bitcoiners have come together to help teach each other. Your health means way more than the health of your bank account. So I think there's so much more to it. A healthy team, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a company of any kind, having a healthy team mentally, physically, all those things are far more important. So I think there's just a big benefit all the way around, far beyond just number go up, that anyone that adopts Bitcoin is going to really start to succeed in so many more ways.
I think you're absolutely spot on with that assessment. Opti, what's your take on all this, brother?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think I've said this in the past, and I think it's very clear now when you look at the numbers. First of all, or second of all, sorry, we all basically did our holiday dinners with our family. Hopefully you're with your family. Hopefully you didn't go too hard on your Bitcoin rants. Hopefully your family members are already Bitcoiners. But if you did go on your family, your yearly family rant about Bitcoin while everyone's around the table, I was telling everyone that it's very easy to just keep telling them and keep reiterating the same message that Bitcoin is the best performing asset, period. It's the superior money. It's perfect money. Whatever meme you wanted to use to explain to your family members that they need to hold some. I think 2024 with the numbers have shown that that is true. As Luke Broyles was saying, Metaplanet has added Bitcoin to their balance sheet. They're the best performing stock in Japan. MicroStrategy is outperforming everything this year, blowing everything out of the water simply by adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. The Bitcoin ETF has launched. It's literally the best performing ETF launch ever. It's already in 10 months, has more capital in it than the gold ETFs, which has been around for a long time. So it's becoming very clear, and the math is there, that Bitcoin is something that you need to be holding. It's the best performing asset over the last 15 years. I think it's the best. What was the numbers? The best performing asset 11 out of the last 14 years, year by year. So the data is there. And the reason I bring all that up is because there's still a lot of people out there on Twitter that are essentially saying like, oh, Bitcoin's useless. Like, it's not backed by anything. Bitcoiners are just gamblers. Bitcoiners are just speculating. And it's like, I don't know what data you are looking at. Bitcoin is simply the best savings vehicle, period. If you actually look into the data, if you actually do the research for longer than like 2 to 3 minutes and you're able to get past all the FUD headlines, it's very clear Bitcoin is the best performing thing, period. You need to be holding some. And I think 2024 is the year that the data is there, and it's conclusively showing that you need to be holding Bitcoin, whether it's Michael Saylor and the MicroStrategy strategy, whether it's what Metaplanet is doing, whether it's the Bitcoin ETF, whether it's Larry Fink coming into Bitcoin. All the signals are showing the same thing. All roads lead to Bitcoin. You need to be holding some. And I actually saw this clip this morning. It was going around this weekend. I think it aired on Christmas or Christmas Eve. And it was Jack Mallers kind of talking about the fact that so many people have a hard time wrapping their head around Bitcoin. And the way he was framing it was something on the lines of like, it's incredibly hard for people to understand that in Bitcoin, you literally make more money in your sleep than you do when you are working as hard as you humanly can. And that just completely flips everything on its head, because we are kind of taught to wake up, grind, work, work your ass off, work your job, save, the profits, and just continue this process until you essentially burn out. And us Bitcoiners are just like, yeah, do that process, but save your excess capital in Bitcoin. And it's a cheat code. It's literally a superpower. And one more last tweet, which I thought was funny. This isn't original for me personally. I saw it on Twitter as well. There was some guy on Twitter. He's like some Canadian Twitter FinCEN guy. And his name's like the Lazy Investor or something on that line. And over the weekend, he's going in and saying like, he literally called the absolute absolute bottom of Bitcoin at 15K, you know, a couple years ago. And his thing's called The Lazy Investor. And he's kind of saying like, oh, Bitcoiners are lazy, they're gamblers and stuff. And the irony is literally you can be the laziest investor, period, by just buying Bitcoin, and you're going to outperform even the best investors, the best companies in the world. And it's literally such an easy cheat code that it seems complicated, and people like to complicate things, but literally, you make more money in your sleep once you're in Bitcoin than you do working your ass off every single day. And that's not to say you don't have to work hard. All I'm saying is that your capital, your savings should be working for you versus constantly losing purchasing power year over year. And that's the status quo. That's the way the world is set up, is if you're saving dollars, you got to become an investor just to survive. And all we're saying is, hey, man, work your job, save some excess capital, live below your means, put it all into Bitcoin. And I'm telling you, in a few years, you're going to be happy you did that. You can literally be a lazy investor with Bitcoin and your life will improve. And that's what everyone wants, is I just want to ensure that I'm not getting broker every year and I can actually have something in the future. And I think more people need to hear this message. Literally, Bitcoin is the thing you need to be saving.
Absolutely. I mean, spot on, absolute epic rant from Saint Opti. I mean, I don't think I've called you Saint Opti in a while. Anyways, I do want to give a shout out to the live stream. Over 600 of you guys watching live on YouTube alone, and 3,200 of you guys watching live between YouTube, Rumble, and X. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. We're going to talk a little bit more about, again, this regulatory creep that's happening in Europe regarding the incoming MiCA regulations. I did a breakdown of all the things that you guys should be on top of. And again, I have some passages from the Sovereign Individual that I want to read to you guys. So again, you can connect the dots, and you have to understand where you are in history. And essentially where we are is we're transitioning from the industrial age into the information age, and things are different. Things are different. The internet has essentially given the power to people to communicate on a mass scale and a peer-to-peer communication. Look at how much they tried to stop and censor social media. Remember when the Twitter files came out, right? Like now you have protocols like Nostr where censorship is just completely off the table. Of course, I want to give a shout out to Elon for so-called freeing the bird, and free speech has been much better on X. And of course, I think with the incoming administration, and especially, you can make a very strong case that they were, that Trump was the victim of deplatforming too. I think that, they're going to put a lot of emphasis on censorship as well. So yeah, I mean, it's very difficult. We're in this pivotal moment in history where, governments used to essentially be able to control the media control the narrative, better said, through legacy media. And now that you are the media now, Anon, because you have the ability to grow your own platform, communicate directly peer-to-peer with your audience, it's a lot harder to control the mass narrative. And you see this. Like, I know you guys, most of you don't do this. Tune into the legacy media. It's another world. It's another dimension. If you are getting your news from X or Nostr or just conversations versus getting your news from legacy media, you are living on another planet. But remember, 10 years ago, there was no other media. It was, you got your news from newspapers, you got your news from the channels. And I think what we've discovered really is that it's like an approved narrative, right? So essentially what we've seen over the last decade, and it was very messy and we covered a lot of it, is what I call the disintermediation of the state and information. And I think where we're heading into is the disintermediation of the state and money. And you think that the disintermediation of information in the state was messy? This upcoming thing, I think, is going to be messier because that's their source of funding. That's their source of power. So I think that it's going to get messier. I think we're going to win at the end. I think Bitcoin has better incentives and all they have is coercion. And my money is always on incentives versus coercion. It's like human nature. Like if you think about all the totalitarian countries like Cuba or West Berlin, East Berlin, why did they always have to build a wall trying to keep people in the totalitarian country, right? And then they would try to free to the free country. Why do Cubans try to get on a raft and, try to navigate 90 miles of open ocean to try to get to Florida? Like, again, if the system was so great, they would stay. But then no, they're literally putting their lives on the line because they want the freedom. They want the freedom to choose. So again, that's incentives. That's the incentive game theory. And then not to mention the fact that even if Europe continues to go down this path, I think that is opening up an opportunity for other countries. A great one is Dubai. They have no income tax. So you see a lot of wealthy Europeans actually go to Dubai to set up business and to set up shop. That's why you have this talk from the Netherlands and Denmark talking about the exit tax, which is nuts, right? I think that what the arrest of Roger Ver was to make an example out of him, saying, listen, even if you give up your US citizenship, we can still arrest you 10 years later and say you committed tax fraud. I think that's really what it's about, guys. And we have to remember where we are in history so that we can navigate it successfully and become sovereign individuals. All right, everybody, let's hit the news. We have tons to cover. Let's check it out. Here we go. We'll be right back.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, everybody. Remember, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. If you're not taking self-custody of your Bitcoin, someone else is taking custody of your Bitcoin. And if someone else is taking custody of your Bitcoin, you have to ask them for permission. And if you have to ask somebody else for permission to use your money, it ain't really your money. So we recommend getting yourself a hardware wallet. And of course, we recommend our partner, completely open source, Bitcoin only hardware wallet, Passport by Foundation Devices. Use promo code SIMPLY to get a small discount. All right, everybody. So again, I think this is just the general theme of today's episode. I totally didn't do this on purpose. It just kind of happens. Yeah, so there's incoming regulations in the United States regarding tax reporting and Bitcoin and crypto assets. Now, because that wasn't signed into law, that was actually a guidance provided by the IRS. The incoming Trump administration can repeal it, but that hasn't been the case yet, nor have they made an announcement of that. That's in the US. Now, what I think is a little bit more interesting is the so-called MiCA rules that Christine Lagarde actually mentioned verbatim when she was talking about Bitcoin. And, nothing is completely troubling, but there are some things that are worrying. So I read this entire article, so you guys wouldn't have to, but essentially let me just provide the top because it provides a little bit of context. So this report provides an analysis of the current and forthcoming regulatory frameworks within the within the EU laws based on the Financial Action Task Force recommendations concerning non-custodial Bitcoin and other crypto asset wallets and peer-to-peer cryptocurrency transactions. The primary aim is to determine whether and to what extent non-custodial wallets fall within the purview of public regulatory systems. Additionally, it evaluates the potential implications of such frameworks for entities and individuals engaging in non-custodial wallet activities. Like, it sounds so demonizing. It's like you send a Bitcoin transaction, you are now engaging in non-custodial wallet activities. Like, and particularly regarding anti-money laundering, counter-terrorism financing requirements. Now, again, I have to emphasize the Forbes article. The vast majority of illicit finance is done within the traditional financial system. So don't let them gaslight you. I think this has nothing to do with all the things that they claim it says it has to do. So anyway, so let me give you guys a quick overview, and then I'll open the discussion up to Opti and Alladin. So first up, it's an analysis, obviously, of the EU regulations. And here are some of the key findings. So the current status is the non-custodial wallets currently outside direct EU AML/CFTC. The EBA guidelines emphasize elevated risks associated with non-custodial wallets, recommend enhanced customer due diligence. Now, again, like the reason that I find this interesting is how? Like how? I'm serious. Like, are you going to KYC every time you download Electrum or Sparrow? Because that's where the reason we cover this, guys, is because that's where it's heading. And I remember when the tornado, we were so spot on when we called this, Opti. The Tornado Cash case happened, and I remember I had like this 1,000-yard stare, and I'm like, oh my God, they're trying to set a precedent. And the Tornado Cash happened. Thankfully, it was appealed. Again, elections have consequences. But it repealed. But but those cases are still ongoing, right? But essentially, what the U.S. government tried to do is that they tried to set a precedent where the Treasury can sanction open source software. You know what else is open source software? Bitcoin. Because I think fundamentally what it comes down to is that the current system of control, because that's really what it is not compatible with an open monetary network where there's rules, but there's no rulers. Now, governments have used to been being the users, the rulers. And now that it's basically, we have a money where the rules are there, they're determined, the system runs fine, there's no CEO required, right? You kind of scratching your, and by the way, the system is better than fiat money. You're just kind of scratching your head and saying like, what's the deal, bro, right? So anyways, here's the forthcoming regulations. MiCA 2024, excluding non-custodial wallets from direct scope, indirectly impacts crypto asset service providers by encouraging stricter practices. So essentially what they're doing is that they're, to use Christine Lagarde's own words, they're closing the escape valve, mandates crypto asset service providers collect data for transactions involving non-custodial wallets. So essentially, TLDR, they want your exchange to report to the government every time you withdraw money from the exchange. Why would they do that? Like, you see where that's heading? Because eventually it gets to a point, and you already are hearing the word from the Italian central bank basically saying that peer-to-peer Bitcoin transactions are illegal. And it kind of reminds me again, like it reminds me of what was happening with social media, where you would have these people on legacy TV basically saying like what's being said in legacy media is what's being said on social media is misinformation. You actually need someone in there to content guidelines, and you need someone in there to be like a referee and determine what is misinformation, what is not information. And there was all this censorship. So essentially it was a justification for censorship. Anyways, it goes on to say, prohibits anonymous transactions. Again, how are they going to be able to do that? How are they going to be able to do that? Like, they could put it on paper, but, let's say you take out Bitcoin, from an exchange, and, you hire someone to do contractor work, and that person is, in Africa, and they can't receive traditional, they can't receive money through the traditional rails, and you pay them in Bitcoin, like, are you supposed to report that transaction, right? And then that's a lot of regulatory paperwork for the average everyday individual. So again, it's a lot of questions, but once they get this into law, the way that a lot of these laws work, guys, and I'll give you the example of the the infamous Bank Secrecy Act in the United States, when that was passed into law in the 1970s, originally, essentially what it was is every $10,000 transaction had to be reported. However, if you adjust for inflation, $10,000 back in the 1970s equates to $80,000 worth of purchasing power today. Back when the so-called Inflation Reduction Act bill passed, one of the things that they wanted to include into that bill was that every $600 transaction had to be reported. Mind you, this is the same government that is failing trillion-dollar audits, right? So they don't even hold themselves to the same accountability, right, that they expect their citizens to follow. If that isn't the definition of tyranny, I don't know what is. So it goes on to say, AML regulation introduces stricter requirements for crypto asset service providers, including transaction monitoring and reporting, requires member states to establish financial intelligence units. It goes on to say, emerging challenges, open source technologies like Lightning Network conflict with regulatory requirements. Potential marginalization of EU-based service providers and innovation due to restrictive policies. No shit. Risk of users shifting to unregulated markets outside the EU. No shit. Privacy, obviously, that's good. What do you think is this is what we've been talking about this entire time. People are just gonna get up and leave, right? Privacy concerns. If you have to build up a wall to keep people in, that's probably not a good sign. Extensive customer data collection requirements risk violating financial privacy rights. And again, we're not going to use this against you, bro. All the videos that are coming out regarding the digital euro, we will respect your privacy. Just like you respected the Canadian truckers, right? Lack of harmonized safeguards and reliance on member states may lead to misuse of data. Criticism of inadequate procedural protocols, judicial oversight, and data sharing practices. Recommendations: reassess regulatory approach to align with technological advancements, ensure balanced measures to support innovation while addressing AML/CFTC concerns. And again, this is the recommendations based on the report. This isn't actually in the report itself. Now, if you're reading all this stuff, you're like, this is pretty freaking insane, right? This is pretty crazy. And here in the US, for example, again, I don't know if this is going to change with the incoming Trump administration, but talk about the regulatory burden on each individual. This is nuts. So this is Andrew Gordon, and he's talking about crypto investors must comply with the IRS revenue procedure 2024 to 2028 safe harbor by 12/31/2024 to avoid penalties and optimize your cost basis for digital assets. Let's break it down so you don't miss this critical deadline. What is Revenue Proc 2024-28? Starting January 1st, 2025, the IRS requires crypto investors to account for digital assets on a wallet-by-wallet basis. The safe harbor allows you to allocate unused cost basis favorability before the deadline. Miss it, and you could face lost tax saving opportunities, potential penalties, and interest. Here's how to comply with the safe harbor by 12/31/2024. Understand the guidelines. The safe harbor lets you allocate unused cost basis to specific wallets using prescribed methods like global allocation or specific unit allocation. Identify all wallets and accounts. List every wallet, exchange, and account holding your crypto. Keep this list for your safe harbor statement. Mind you, what they just said is take a picture and send every let the IRS know all of your wallets, all of your exchange balances, all your accounts, and you're going to send it to them. If that is not a privacy concern, I don't know what is. And again, I read this first part. I think it's 50 or 40% of Americans own crypto. I don't even know what that first paragraph meant. I'm not an accountant. I don't have that type of background. Do you think this is insanity, right? Mind you, this is a government that is spending trillions of dollars more than is collecting in tax revenue year after year, meaning they have a serious spending problem, but they expect their citizens to fall in line. That is crazy. Separate money from state, Bitcoin or slavery. It's no joke. Anyways, Goes on to say, prepare your safe harbor statement, allocation method, a complete list of wallets and exchanges, attach your timestamped screenshots. I mean, dude, that's all I got to say. Now, why is this happening? And it's important to remember, why is this happening? As you know, I think we're out of it, but just as the separation of information and state was messy, the deplatforming of a president, the censorship of information, the Twitter files revealed that elements of the US government were conspiring with social media companies to censor the speech of Americans, even though it's completely against the First Amendment. You have to understand, they've probably been doing that for a long time. But with the internet, it's a totally different ballgame. And again, it's like, the invention of gunpowder, the invention of the printing press. These are technologies that fundamentally reshaped how society organized itself. So I do want to read some passages from The Sovereign Individual, and then I'm going to pass it on to Alladin because I know I've been ranting on my soapbox for a long time. So this goes on to say, the authors of The Sovereign Individual also predicted that with the rise of the new cyberspace and consequently cyber money, it will become harder for a nation state to collect taxes from its citizens. They compare the state to a farmer keeping cows in a field to be milked, but that, quote, soon the cows will have wings. They predict that for the government to collect taxes from its citizens in this type of society, it would have to violate human rights. Even in traditional civil countries, would have to resort and turn nasty. Now, when they say taxes, I want to emphasize taxation. Inflation is a form of taxation. So lacking their accustomed scope to tax and inflate, which is the same thing in my opinion, governments, even in traditionally civil countries, will turn nasty. Businesses that offer services that facilitate the realization of autonomy by individuals will be subject to infiltration, sabotage, and disruption. Arbitrary forfeiture of property, already commonplace in the United States, where it occurs 5,000 times a week, will become even more pervasive. Governments will violate human rights, censor the free flow of information, sound familiar? Sabotage useful technologies, sound familiar? And worse. So this is where we are in the movie. This is where we are in the story. And it's important to kind of just, zoom out and understand where you are in human history. But it's extremely exciting because once we get over this hill, I think humanity is going to live through a golden era of prosperity and freedom, the likes of which we have never seen in human history, which is extremely exciting to me. Alladin, what are your thoughts on all this, brother?
Oh, man. I don't know about everyone else, but I really feel like we are just frogs in the boiling pot. But I think the pot has been boiling hardcore for quite a while, especially 2020. They were able to get away with so much. I really think all this just comes down to a big test. And the fact that they were able to get away with everything they did over the last 4 years, and we haven't stood up further than we have been standing up, they're just going to keep poking, and they're going to keep pushing as far as they possibly can. Excuse me. Until we either stand up or we just completely give in and let them do whatever they want. I mean, come on. Saying Bitcoin is used by criminals when Epstein was literally being banked by JP Morgan. I don't remember anything coming out of Epstein using Bitcoin or Diddy using Bitcoin or any of these absolute disgusting POSs. It's really simple. If anyone wants to just take the time to use some critical thinking skills, it's all out there, laid out really, really clear for everyone to understand. So I do think that all of this is so extreme. It has to be a test. It's got to be part of the matrix right now. And there's, like you said, hopefully we get to the point where we have this bright orange future that we've all been waiting for, that humanity's been waiting for, but the tyrants have been in control for so long. Most of these countries in the EU, not most, I think every single one of them has given up their rights to bear arms, their rights to protect themselves. And they've literally said to the government, we trust you with our families. We trust you with everything. That is disturbing and disgusting. And that's really where brass hits the road at that point harder than anything. So think it's just a big test right now, and it's time for either the people in the EU to start waking up, or it's just going to get worse. And it really is hopefully a big sign to us in the United States that we better be on our toes with all of this and making sure we're paying attention, because what is successful there will be the next test here.
Absolutely, 1,000,000%. It's a testing bed. You can make a very strong argument that the United States subsidizes the European Union, which part of the reason that they're able to get away with a lot of this spending. And Mike Ben's been making the rounds on Tucker. I believe he went on Joe Rogan. It's so eye-opening. And one of the things that he's making the argument for is, ever since the Twitter files were exposed, and essentially they couldn't do that domestically, what they're trying to do is do it through Europe and implement regulations in Europe that would affect American companies, and therefore kind of, circumvent the, this pesky First Amendment that is, very uncomfortable, right? You can't think, peasant. You can't think. You can't think critically. How dare you, peasant? How dare you want to use your own money? Don't you know that's dangerous? We know what's best for you. Inflation is actually good for the soul. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, brother?
Yeah, well, my first thought is this is very obviously digital capital controls, and we've seen what happens when governments and dictators and tyrannical governments try to control capital. It doesn't end well. And we're just seeing this start to go into the digital landscape. And so are we surprised? Obviously, no. I think we've been covering this all year long, Nico. And the way we've kind of been framing it, actually, you've been covering it more on like the sanctions avenue. But Bitcoin is incompatible with how things are written right now. And you can see even with those proposals or the conclusions at the end of your overview, you can see that they are also kind of realizing that, wait, we can't really do the same thing that we've always been doing with fiat currencies, with Bitcoin, and we have to totally reevaluate what we're doing here. And so will they acknowledge that they don't have any power here? I don't think so. But what we are seeing is that, again, they understand what the stakes are, and they are trying to think through this. Obviously, if they could get away with it, they would do whatever they can to control Bitcoin. And we've been covering it all year. The on and off ramps are very clearly an easy choke mechanism. A very easy pain point there is if you get all the exchanges to add and double their scrutiny on the users, the KYC, AML, etc., then it will be harder for people to get Bitcoin. And this is how they can slow the adoption of Bitcoin. And we've been seeing throughout the year that governments are kind of wrapping their heads around this idea of, wait, Bitcoin's here. It's not going to stop. It's decentralized. It's permissionless. No one controls it. There isn't one pain point. There isn't one head to chop off. And now we have to kind of reevaluate. Metaphorically, of course. And we have to reevaluate how we are going to try to control this thing. And so, as we say all the time as Bitcoiners, you have to humble yourself to, start stacking sats. It's an ego test. And I'm not really the biggest fan of the meme. It's an ego test. But we are seeing that governments, they're obviously not at the point where they're going to humble themselves and realize, well, we're better off embracing this. But we're seeing that they are trying to push proposals right now to try to stop Bitcoin. And it's the classic FUD lines, Nico. We covered this in the beginning of the show. They paint us as criminals. It's a pure and simple dialectic here. They paint us as criminals, and their solution is, well, let's just tag and bag them more. Let's just, have more stringent rules on top of it, and we can control this better. And so you're seeing that this is playing out over and over and over again. We've seen, again, historically what happens with capital controls, and this is just getting moved into the digital landsphere or the digital ecosystem. And so I think they will fail. Hopefully they realize that it's better to engage with Bitcoin honestly and let people use Bitcoin. But we know that many of the people in power are just there for control. And so I don't think they're going to give up that control very easily. But we're seeing them kind of wrap their heads around this idea of, wait, we can't control this. So how can we control this? Or rather, how can we control individuals? And it's very clear. You just pass more regulations, more laws, make it harder for people to get Bitcoin. And this is how they think they will stop Bitcoin. But that's really only going to work for us early adopters in Bitcoin. It's only going to stop the first people to get into Bitcoin. But once you're in Bitcoin, they can't control it. And you know, I argue all the time that, hey, they can barely control their own system. What makes them think that they can control our new system that is literally designed to be uncontrollable? This is a losing proposition here, but it doesn't mean they're not going to try.
100%. I 100% agree with that. Opti and Alladin. Now it's time for the fun time of the show. We're going to talk about BTC Trading Cards. These guys are absolute legends, and they're going to be dropping a new pack coming in or Q1 of 2025. And some of the cards are absolutely amazing. I want to share some of them today, Opti. So we can have that in the background. And
well, I got one. I got the only one I care about here, but I know Alladin's got some cool ones.
So yeah, we're definitely going to go through all that. So guys, stay tuned for the culture. Broke 4,000 live viewers right now on YouTube, Rumble, and X. Glad you guys are enjoying the show. I think 600 alone on YouTube, which is a great show. And we're on the verge of breaking 300 likes. Guys, if we can break 350 likes by the time
we need 6 of you to like right now,
the show is over, that would be absolutely phenomenal. All right, everybody, we're going to hit the culture. We'll be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. It's going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year. I mean, it's next year, but it is coming up very soon, April 3rd through the 6th in Dallas, Texas. Guys, there's a barbecue. There's a day of networking, dinners, lunches. It's just like, it's a phenomenal celebration. It's actually the first Bitcoin conference where me and Opti met each other in person. The BitBlockBoom conference is the event that you don't want to miss. It's going to be the Bitcoin celebration. Of course, it's happening on the year of the parabola, guys. You just don't want to miss BitBlockBoom. So I hope to see you guys there. It's in Dallas, Texas. Again, you get your plane tickets, you get your hotel, and you want to get your tickets quickly because the prices do go up in about 11 days or so. And if you use promo code BBB21, you get $100 off of your tickets. All right, everybody. So we have a living legend in the house today, the creator, the founder of BTC Trading Cards in the house, Alladin in the flesh. I mean, no, digitally in the flesh with us today. How you doing, Alladin?
Good. I'm always happy to be on here with you guys.
Well, dude, like it's big news. It's big news. I'm gonna make it full screen. And, you know, you are dropping a new pack, and you guys announced a new pack. The Warriors versus Villains pack. And, you know, you guys were gracious enough to make a card for Simply Bitcoin, and it's absolutely epic. I mean, that picture of Opti, like...
I really need a mustache. I'm not going to lie, Alladin. I really need to grow in a mustache.
If Maloney saw that picture, you know, like, damn. Anyways, I do want to read from the back of the card. It says, dubbed your guide through the separation of money and state. This dynamic duo, Nico and Opti, are the hosts of Simply Bitcoin, a high-energy media company covering news, culture, and mimetic warfare. With their engaging chemistry and deep understanding of Bitcoin, they make these topics accessible to both newcomers and seasoned Bitcoiners. Embracing the potential of this revolutionary technology, Nico and Opti are on the mission to get as many people out of the fiat matrix onto the Bitcoin lifeboat. And then on the card itself says 2 Bitcoiners, Opti carries the gun, Nico is one, 2 men on the mission, and it's Simply Bitcoin. Absolutely freaking incredible, beautiful. I'm so honored, Alladin. Thank you guys so much. You guys are, you guys are absolute legends. You guys are so talented in the art that you put into, you know, these cards. I believe this one is inspired from the Mel Gibson movie, man. What's the name of the movie? I forget. It's slipping my mind at the moment. Lethal Weapon. And they were super famous, those movies. They made a bunch of them. There's like Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, Weapon 3. And it's inspired from that. And it just looks so good. Could you give us a hint of other cards, the other kind of cards that you guys are planning to drop that the community is familiar with?
Yeah, so I'll give you just a little breakdown on this. This is like the chase right here. This card. Yeah, Opti, you got to grow that mustache, dude.
I'm really like, I just shaved because I'm back with my mother and, you know, my family. I wanted to look clean for Christmas, but I really need to grow a mustache. That's a strong picture right there.
You look good with one, bro. and I think Nico, in order to win the hair battle with Ben Sessions, I think you really need to start pulling that one off. So yeah, buy some hairspray and get into the 80s, bro. This card was really cool. I mean, at the end of the day, the pen is mightier than the sword, and with where we're at today, I do believe the meme is mightier than the pen. We're moving on to just a completely different moment in time, and the memes are what make some of the biggest impacts nowadays. So that's really what these cards are in a lot of ways. It's a physical meme. You guys like to call it the physical NFT. I think that being able to capture the art and the fun in these cards is really a great way to start just waking people up and collect these moments in history. So Warriors versus Villains, I had to be really careful with this one because we were pushing the envelope pretty far. I think we're still pushing the envelope pretty hard with a lot of the cards that we have in this set. We're featuring a bunch of just incredible warriors in the Bitcoin space. We've got some badass warriors in general that are just freedom fighters. Bob Marley, I grew up listening to Bob Marley's music, so we've got a badass Bob Marley card in there as a freedom fighter. He's obviously passed away long before Bitcoin was created, but it's highlighting so much that is revolving around freedom. If you don't support Bitcoin, you don't support freedom, and it goes both ways. So when it comes to the villains in these cards, we're pushing it. I mean, we've got the WEF card. We have the WHO card. I'll use the acronym so that you guys don't get demonetized on here. But
yeah, thank you.
The big pharma. I mean, we really have went above and beyond on this. So you have family members. We just went through Christmas. We tried to have this out for the holidays, but the amount of work that went into this set was just extreme. It's been nearly a year that we've been working on this one set, and we still have a small team, but it's really about the proof of work and everything we do in order to be successful in the trading card industry at all. You've got to go above and beyond. In Bitcoin, we have the cyber hornets, and in the trading card industry, you have the hobby hornets, and we literally have to please both in order to make this successful. So for anyone that doesn't know, we are 100% Bitcoin only. The only thing you will see in here about shitcoins is us explaining how dangerous that really is. So I think this is something that is massively needed out there for people to be able to really understand the importance of Bitcoin and get it in a different way. We've got podcasts, we've got books, we've got so many different amazing ways to learn about Bitcoin ourselves, teach our friends and family about Bitcoin. But with time preference being as broken as it is, I've got kids of my own, teenagers. You really have to hit people with a 30-second elevator pitch with Bitcoin a lot of the time, especially when you're getting into the villains. Most people don't know much about the WEF. They don't know much about Big Pharma. There's many reasons why the cognitive dissonance will stop people from wanting to understand these topics, but these cards go far beyond Bitcoin. They really just expose all of the good points that people need to understand about freedom, and a lot of things people need to really wake up to, and the reasons why we are so bullish on Bitcoin and why it's so important for humanity.
Absolutely. Love it. Beautifully said. I love that, dude. Opti?
Yeah, and here, Alladin, actually, you did just gloss over it rather. And someone in the chat is saying, "Hey, man, what's the use case of these cards?" And so I think a good kind of segue into a question is more so on the lines of how has been the response? And you talked about this in the past, and I asked you earlier before we even got on the show, like, what is the response from, normie world? You were calling it what the non cyber hornet traders out there.
The
Like,
hobby hornets.
yeah, exactly. So what's the response from people outside of our industry? Because obviously as a Bitcoiner, we're like, we know what everything is. We're hyped, especially Nico and I, like, we're hyped to get on the card. It's kind of like one of those things where, hey, mama, I made it. But when you go to these card events, because you go to card conventions that aren't just Bitcoin card conventions. So what is the response from the outside world looking into our world?
All right, so for people that don't understand much about trading cards, the similarities between trading cards and the Federal Reserve are incredible. A lot of these things, I worked on this project for 4 years, 3 years alone, and then about a year and a half actually with my partner in this before we even kicked out the first set, because there's so much more to this than just cardboard with art and some education on it. The trading card industry is broken like the Federal Reserve. These different trading card sets out there, Pokemon, sports cards, anything you've heard of, and trading cards, they're printed at will. No matter what it is, there's nearly, you can almost call it zero transparency in the trading card industry, where they will tell you how many of anything they print, mainly because you'll see behind me, I've got different sets. Well, the trading card industry, whatever sector it's from, sports cards, playing cards, they will come out with a new set. If it sells really well, then they're going to reprint that set over and over to make as much profit off of it as they can until the hype dies down. With what we do, we're like Bitcoin. We're 100% transparent. When we come out with a set, it's a finite supply of that set, and it's incredibly scarce compared to any sets of trading cards. For example, Pokemon has printed literally billions with a B, packs of trading cards. There are enough packs of trading cards for everyone in the entire world to own, without exaggerating, at least 1, 2, maybe even 3 packs of trading cards for every single person on Earth. And that's just Pokemon. So it's really teaching scarcity to the majority of people that don't understand Bitcoin, don't understand money, and don't understand how money works. So even if you're not reading the back of the cards and you're new to Bitcoin, you're new to understanding what money is, you're going to learn about scarcity before anything else. And that's the number one thing you need to understand in order to understand why the money in your pocket either is worth something or it's not. And that depends on what you spend it on. So these cards are great in so many different ways for people. I think as Bitcoiners, there's 2 main things that make these cards so special. One is you're time stamping these moments in history. You were here in the beginning, Simply Bitcoin. We've put so many different amazing Bitcoiners in these packs. We've got boomers in Bitcoin. We put Surfer Jim in there, Bob Burnett, Gary from created BitBlockBoom, Gary Leland. These are some really maybe not massive people in the world, but to us Bitcoiners right now, over the last few years, they're huge to a lot of us. We don't put anyone in as heroes because Bitcoin teaches you to kill your heroes. We put in Bitcoin warriors.
Metaphorically.
Yes, metaphorically. These are people that have done some amazing work in the Bitcoin space. And if you were here before Bitcoin took off and went parabolic, there's something really special about time stamping those moments. And if your wife or your partner is anything like mine, this is my office, so I'm allowed to have this Bitcoin stuff up. But a lot of us maybe don't have the offices to be able to put our Bitcoin art up. And the cards are a great way to have a small little memento of these times in Bitcoin history to be able to hold on to. And I think the other part is, like, we've got packs as cheap as $2 a pack called Genesis packs. Friends, family, I really get pissed off. Like if I go out to eat somewhere, I'm grabbing something really quick and they're literally charging me not tax, but we're always charged the tax. They're wanting to charge me a tip for a cup of coffee. No way in hell. But there is a test to these cards. We were talking just a little bit ago about the test they're putting on us. Well, let's put that test back on the people. Hand them a pack of the Genesis packs that cost you anywhere from $2 to $3, and it's up to them to open that pack. They're going to learn about freedom, money, Bitcoin, and that might be their little start off point right there without having to jump out and go far beyond this quick little 30-second, 1-minute pack. So there's, I think, a really simple way to give people a chance to learn about Bitcoin without having to open up a big conversation. Bob Burnett has been a big supporter of us from the beginning, and he said, if you make Bitcoin fun, if there's a way for you to take these topics that are really really red-pilled, really hard for most people to understand, and you can take these topics and make them simple and fun for any person to be able to just rip a pack open, enjoy that nostalgia of their childhood, and give them a chance to learn about Bitcoin, to learn about why we are so bullish. It could be a catalyst unlike any other. And I mean, we're taking this project far beyond just Bitcoin events. We're putting our time, sweat, blood, and tears and going out and hitting literally tens of thousands of normies at trading card conferences with a massive booth that says Bitcoin Trading Cards. And the majority of people that come up, just to let you all know how early we are, they're asking, when did Bitcoin start making trading cards? When did the CEO of Bitcoin get into wanting to create their own trading cards? So we are incredibly early. And for me, it's not about getting mass adoption with huge companies, huge capital. We already have so many people working on that. This is my part to play in trying to get your everyday person, moms, dads, small businesses, the people that I really feel we need the most in this evolution towards making this world a better place. The big companies have already proved who and what they are. It is the smaller everyday people that I feel personally we need to understand these things and get into Bitcoin as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Love
man.
it.
Opti, I saw this in the chat. I want to address it real quick. So for the audio listeners, and someone in the chat asked, their website where you can buy the cards is btc-tc.com. Again, bt-tc.com. And of course, you could also follow them on Twitter. I'm going to put it in the YouTube description. It will go in the description as well. A link to the right. And again, the new pack, when does it drop, Alladin?
So we have pre-orders open now, and the pack should be here around mid-January. So right now we've got some really cool things going on with how we do these sets, some different combos you can buy into. The cool thing about this compared to NFTs and the rest of the crap out there that is literally just scamming people, we sell the packs, and then beyond there, the collectability of trading cards, they've been around for 150 years. The market alone for trading cards is around, I think it's $69 billion today, and over the next few years they project it to be $100 billion industry. So the art and collectibles market is one of the biggest asset markets in the entire world, and we are literally creating these cards in a way that hasn't been done before in trading card history. And the amount of quality proof of work we put into the artwork, we put into the print and everything we do here, these cards are definitely going to blow some minds. I'll give you guys just one shot of one of these. We go absolutely above and beyond with everything we do. And because the value of these cards on the secondary market have taken off the way they have, we have figured out a way with the printer to put on they call a fingerprint onto every one of the chase cards, to where they literally cannot be reproduced unless someone is able to break into the vault at the center where these are printed. And we have the biggest printer in the world that we're working with. They're the printers for, I'm not allowed to exactly say, but you can kind of guess. We'll just say the biggest trading card projects in the world, we're working with the same printers. So quality control and proof of work from our hands into the best printer in the world. we're going to try to take on the trading card industry with everything we got, the same way Bitcoin's trying to take on the monetary industry. And the education behind these, it's so much more than a collectible, so much more than money go up. Like I said, my biggest love and enjoyment I get from Bitcoin is not just the fact that we're in this for a number go up. This is an awakening. If it starts to wake people up to the importance of their own personal health and how something as simple as the seed oils you're eating are absolutely disgusting, killing you and your family, your children, these are the awakenings that are going to make a bigger impact than number go up any day. And these trading cards are teaching along with it. So if you can make this education fun, I didn't learn shit in school unless my teacher was fun and entertaining and engaging. And that's really the education we're trying to do with these cards is put out a lot of really based, amazing education and make it as fun as possible. So people hopefully.
Hell yeah. I love that. One of the things that a couple things. So I think it was Andrew Breitbart that was very influential for me and just content creation, all that. He has a very famous quote that I said during the Bitcoin conference, and it was hilarious because the publication, The Guardian, quoted it like as if I was saying it. But it was something along the lines of like, politics is downstream from culture. So you want to win the political discussion, which is politics, the definition is the organization of power. You have to win over the culture. That's really how it is. And the other thing I'll say too is you're talking about the secondary market, dude. I showed my mom when I found a signed NiCA on eBay and it was $450. Like, damn. I'm a signed NiCA unconfiscatable Joker edition, $450. That is surreal, you know? So, and again, it's because they're scarce. Like you guys, for this upcoming pack, I believe there's only 21,000 packs that's ever going to be printed. How many of how many cards are in a pack? And then I forget what you call it, a chaser, the special edition. What's it called?
It's a chase card or a hit card. Yeah.
Okay, so how many cards are per pack? And then how many like chase card? There's one chase card per pack, right?
Yeah, so there's one guaranteed hit in every pack, and that'll be a serialized card. So it'll be a card with the number stamped on the back. But then the way we've done this is we've thrown a hell of a twist into this set. So you're going to get 10 cards in a pack. 3 of those cards are going to be your base card, and each of those base cards is just a non-foil standard trading card, but those are limited out of 1,000. So the worst card you're going to pull is out of 1,000. And in trading card hobby terms, that's completely unheard of, never been done before, where the worst card you pull is out of 1,000. Most of the sets that you're going to see in traditional trading cards is going to be literally out of 10,000 maybe is your lower end. 100,000 to 1,000,000 is maybe your kind of standard. And then of course you're going to get like a serialized card with a number if you're really lucky, but you may have to chase hundreds and hundreds of packs or at least thousands of dollars in packs in order to guarantee that you're going to pull a card that is like a super limited edition card. With what we're doing, every single pack you're guaranteed a hit. And if we were to mass produce these, then there would be no scarcity in that. But with 21,000 packs and our competitors printing 21 million to 210 million packs, there's no comparison. There's no competition at all. And I think that's why the value of these cards have went up on the secondary market so quickly. eBay, I mean, there's a lot of people that know nothing about Bitcoin that are really jumping into these cards and getting into it massively because they're in trading cards and they understand at least the basis of scarcity and how broken the trading card industry is. So they're all over this. And yeah, some of these cards, it blows my mind because when I first created this project, I never imagined these cards would really have some crazy value to them beyond being a great orange pill tool. But what they have done is just insane on the secondary market. But scarcity is everything, and the trading card industry is broken, and we're bringing something to it that is very, very similar to Bitcoin in the way of the proof of work and the scarcity. We've tried to put every element we can that we love about Bitcoin that makes Bitcoin so special into these cards. So again, that that correlation between the hobby and the Federal Reserve and Bitcoin trading cards of Bitcoin. There's so many of them. Like you said, it's all about capturing culture, and the trading card industry is one of the biggest pop culture captures in the world. That's why, from video games to sports to Donald Trump, I mean, you name it, it's all in trading cards for a specific reason. So bringing Bitcoin to trading cards, it's kind of a no-brainer to me in the way of being able to really capture the pop culture through it.
Absolutely, it's spot on, man, and I agree. Like, this is a cultural and political movement. Like, as you guys have to understand about Bitcoin is, it, like, yes, it's money, yes, it's a technology, but once you adopt Bitcoin and you hold it in cold storage and you hold it for, you know, a significant portion of time, and let's say you have a big portion of your net worth in there, it changes who you are as a person, right? So there's something deeper at play here, and that's why I believe that, you know, like, I you know, they always call us a cult. Like, I always put like a picture of the dollar with the pyramid and the eye in the back, and I'm like, bro, if that's not a cult, I don't know what is. At least our cult, we get richer. Your cult, you get poorer. I think we have a better cult, if you are to call it a cult. So yeah, I think, you know, there's so many different components of Bitcoin, and so many things are important. It's like media, the entrepreneurs building the services, but it's, you know, trading cards like yourself, man. It's a bit of art, you know, and it's scarce, right? It's like Bitcoin is very similar in that sense, and it's super, super cool. So guys, stay tuned for the BTC trading card new pack, Warrior versus Villain, be dropping in Q1 of 2025. You can pre-order packs right now. Do that quick while supplies last. Again, go to btc-tc.com to visit their website. Anyways, guys, today was Simply Bitcoin Live for December 26, 2024. I'm soon going to be saying 2025, which is interesting. I'm Nico, your host. This is my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, and our special guest for today, Alladin, founder and CEO of Bitcoin. Love you all. We'll see you tomorrow for the last episode of Simply Bitcoin Live for the week. Let's check it out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.